Good evening, and welcome to Unacademy. So, we'll be discussing 5 to 6 important articles out of the Hindu newspaper. And today we have an interesting set of editorials and text and context. Good evening to all of you. Now, with regards to the Hindu analysis, just remember one thing that these topics, as much as they are relevant for mains, have multiple prelims aspects also. So I'll keep on pointing it out. The first we'll talk about critical minerals and mineral diplomacy. It's a very interesting article because it gives you solutions also. At the same point of time, we have the data point of the Aravalli hills and how much illegal mining happens in that regard. Further, we'll talk about a bill which has been tabled in Kerala and quite problematic that ways. And then we'll talk about marine and space biotechnology. This is a new emerging area and we have to discuss this. And last but not the least is an ILO report which we'll discuss. Now, in all of these topics, there is an angle of prelims and I'll keep on pointing it out. And I will also make mind maps for you so that you don't forget per se on how to systematize all this information. Very valuable articles for both GS paper 2 and 3. So therefore, we are going to make sure that we use the articles in the best way possible. Now, before we begin, remember that the offer which we are running right now with regards to a short-term course for 2026 and long-term courses for 2027, this is going to end on 17th of January and therefore you should use this 50% plus extension offer if you are preparing for 27 and if you want a very short burst of information, for example, with regards to any resource, be it MTS, PTS, the classes, everything you will get within this 3+2 offer. So give for 3 months, get 2 months free. Interesting. If you want and you have to use the code IS English, then only you will get the least price possible on our platform. Now, let's talk about the first article. Can we do that? Good evening to all of you. Yes, everybody's here. Great. So, with regards to minerals, the buzzword right now is critical minerals, rare earth metals. If you've been following current affairs, if you've been following the news, if you've been following what is happening in geopolitics also, rare earth metals and critical minerals have been in the news quite a lot now. Now, this article tells you about two things. First, how can we develop a strategy to undercut the problem which exists in the global supply chain and also gives you a way forward. But first, we have to establish something which is for the students who have no idea what a critical mineral is or what is rare earth metal and what the real problem is. Let's look at the quantum here. See, when I say rare earth metals, within the periodic table, these metals are called as rare earth metals. They are very critical in making magnets, be it semiconductor chips, be it most modern technology which runs the internet to your cars needs at least cobalt and lithium. Even your phone needs lithium. Lithium is now the most important element which is needed for all batteries in that regard. We are moving to other forms of batteries, but still is needed. Now, the distribution of these rare earth metals is not uniform across the world. And that is where if you look at the map of rare earth metals, you will realize that there's a concentration of rare earth metals in China. And Trump has been saying, Greenland, Greenland, we need Greenland, we need Greenland. The reason why he wants Greenland is not because he does not want to have what we call as he wants to avoid Russia as an immediate neighbor. They already have Russia as an immediate neighbor. It is because Greenland had 1.2% of rare earth metals also. So he knows that under that ice, there is a lot of rare earth metals which have not been explored also. It is the critical minerals which he's looking for. And that is where this angle comes through with regards to what is called as his obsession with Greenland right now. Somebody's basically gone to him and said to him that, see, we need this because we need these minerals. He's giving multiple reasons, but that is the reason. Now, if I give you a more, you can say, holistic picture of how rare earth metals are actually distributed, 44 million metric tons is with China. And thereafter, Brazil 21 million, India has 6.9 million, and then there is Africa, North America, Oceanic area, Europe, Russia being the most important contributor there, and Vietnam and Thailand as producers. But what China has a monopoly on is two things. First, you have to understand these three words here. One is called upstream, the other one is called midstream, and the third is called as downstream. See, in rare earth metals understanding, upstream means you have to mine it. This is ore extraction. On the other hand, midstream means processing, and downstream means manufacturing. And what is the problem here is midstream is the most difficult to do, which is mine, refine, manufacture. Processing is the most difficult to do. What China has a monopoly of, monopoly generally is on processing. It does not have all the iron ore, but all the mineral ores, but still all ore has to go to China for processing. So upstream domination is there with 44 million tons, metric tons, and midstream is more or less 90% of all processing happens in China, and manufacturing also they are very, very good at. So when we look at this graphic, you have to understand three things here. That it is not just that China has the ore. China has the capacity to dominate the ore production also, dominate the processing also, and manufacturing also. India has 6.9 million metric tons, but we don't have the capacity to process this. Further, we don't have manufacturing units of semiconductors. So what the article says in very simple terms, without giving you all of this data, where I come in, where I'm trying to give you more context, it very simply says that clean energy transition cannot happen without rare earth metals and critical minerals. And with regards to that, China plays a very important role. India imports 86% of all its critical minerals and rare earth metals. 86%. Out of that, the Chinese import dominates. And China more or less controls the global supply chain of what we call as processing and value addition with regards to semiconductors or what we call as rare earth metals. So the article's starting point is we are too dependent on China. We have to do something about that. That is the question here. We are too dependent on China. We have to do something about that. How do we do it? How do we do it is the question. Now, the answer to that question is very simple. We have to diversify and we have to find partners in the short and long term which can let us absorb any global supply chain, what we call a shock. For example, COVID was a very good example. In COVID, what happened is the car manufacturers were not able to deliver car itself because the chips which were put in were coming from China with regards to semiconductors. South Korean semiconductors were there, but there was a major backlog with regards to semiconductors. China more or less dictated that market. So with regards to India's dependence on China, what are the possible solutions? So in our understanding of what we are trying to understand in this article or what we are trying to deduce out of this article, we are talking about critical minerals. And the first problem statement is that be it upstream, midstream or downstream, China dominates it. And at the same point of time, India's dependence on this is too much. Dependence is too much. Therefore, the question mark is, how do we create a certain strategy? Do we understand this point? I have just established for you right now the problem statement. Okay, this is what the article is based upon. I could have presumed that you know it. I did not, because I want to give you from 0 to 100. Meaning now I've created the context here. Now, the article then points out countries which can help us. The first is Japan. With regards to Japan, Japan was one of the first to respond to China's monopolistic politics and monopolistic strategies. And with regards to diversification, stockpiling, and India and Japan already have an Indian Rare Earth Limited, or you can say Indian Rare Earths Limited based cooperation, wherein we are also trying to get potential joint extraction and processing technology. Therefore, it can help us in downstream, rather upstream and midstream. I hope I will write like this. I hope you will understand it. Meaning, with regards to upstream and the midstream, we rather downstream and midstream, we can basically use Japan. Now, the next potential partner which can help us is Australia. And if you look at the map, you will realize that the Australian sector holds 3.2% of critical minerals, specifically cobalt and lithium. So therefore, Australia is a good partner, both for upstream and midstream. So that is where we have to make sure that India-Australia relationship generally remains within a certain zone where we can take their rare earth metals and process them. So cooperation is as of right now very active. At the same point of time, since 2022, India-Australia critical minerals investment partnership has been going through with regards to lithium and cobalt. So this helps us in the upstream and midstream, which is extraction and processing. Now, if we go one step further, the next continent which can help us, that is why this article is very important. The next continent which can help us is Africa. Here, two countries are of very important focus for us, Namibia and Zambia. Namibia is giving us lithium and Zambia is important for copper and cobalt. Namibia, it can also give us uranium if needed along with it. So we are now trying to develop what is called as a good relationship with these states. But the problem is we have to be more integrated into the supply chain. We can't just extract the ore, bring it to India, process it, and then give it to them. We have to create both upstream and midstream understanding there. The next zone, which is the most unexplored, is West Asia and what is called as Latin America. West Asia does not have the critical mineral, but it has the money to create processing plants and manufacturing plants. This is where both UAE and Saudi Arabia are being considered as very important downstream and midstream partners, wherein processing and the process of manufacturing, they have the capacity to refine, also create what we call as new age material and new age technologies. So West Asia should be used, has to be used for midstream partnership because they have the money to do R&D also and push in the new technology also. But the most unexplored territory is Argentina, Chile, Peru and Brazil. Brazil is the second biggest stockpile of rare earth metals. The problem with this is, though we have some form of MOU, the problem with this is this cannot be short term. It is too volatile, and now with what US did in Venezuela, it is also based on US politics. So though we are trying to develop a good relationship with Argentina with regards to this, we have to be developing both upstream, midstream and downstream all in that regard. So let's try to now make our what we call as mind map more, you can say, more representative of what the article says. We have Japan, and please remember this for the examination, can help you answer a lot of questions, specifically in prelims. In prelims, if they ask you countries which have rare earth metals, this list will help you. So Japan, Australia are two direct partners for what is called as downstream and midstream. Thereafter, we have UAE and Saudi Arabia. They are good for midstream and upstream. And then we have the Latin American sector, which is basically purely unexplored territory, unexplored. We have to develop something with this. And Africa is a good area for what is called as upstream and midstream development for sure. That is why I told you these three terms, because the article also uses this quite a lot, which is upstream, extraction, processing, and manufacturing. So if you actually look at it, the idea is very simple, that India has to diversify its sources. And now, in order to write this in the examination, we need a good language also. We need a good language set in that regard. And that good language set, or that very refined language which is used by the article, which can also come in the examination, is that, see, as of right now, there are multiple choke points. What should be India's strategy? This is the line which should be there in the examination from you, which is India must use its country by country approach to build resilience across the value chain. We cannot rely on any specific continent. We cannot rely on any specific country. We have to have a country by country approach, and that country by country approach will allow us to infuse resilience within the value chain. Within the value chain. This is a very important point. Very important point. This will be important for overall resilience. And it also lists, which is Africa, Australia, Canada, Latin America for upstream ore extraction, West Asia for midstream processing along with Japan, EU and the US for downstream technologies, which is quite unlikely, and Russia for diversification. This is your main, this is why we are reading this article for. This is fodder for the examination. This can be a direct question in the examination per se, that what is the purpose of different countries here. So I hope that this is a very, very, very important slide, because it allows us to summarize everything in that regard. Everything can be summarized in one space. Now, how will the question come? I can just pick this statement up, and I can give you a question like this. India must use its country by country approach to build resilience across the value chain of critical minerals. Comment. Very simple, straightforward question. Nothing out of the box per se. But if you don't have this list of Australia, Japan, UAE, or Saudi Arabia, or how Russia fits in, how US fits in, how EU fits in, how the African sector fits in, you will not be able to answer the question. So I hope that you will use this data now to answer a question like this. Are we sorted with this article? All are in a way little bit what is called as theoretically heavy, but we will extract what is needed for the examination also. Yes, sir? Perfect. Now, the second article deals with the Aravallis. Now, the Aravallis have been in the news quite a lot. I'll give you the timeline for that also. But this is a data point article. Data point article means it will deal with a lot of the data which the Hindu newspaper team has extracted from the public domain, and it will try to argue something. Now, before we go into the overall argument or what the data point is trying to make sense of with regards to what the data is with regards to illegal mining, let's first look at face value, then try to understand what is the Aravalli issue itself. The idea is very simple. Rajasthan, roughly 70% of all the Aravalli range is within Rajasthan districts, and while the Aravalli districts account for only 45% of states mining leases, which is proper legal mining, and only contributes to 40% of its mineral output, illegal mining is excess of 56%. Therefore, the FIRs which are being done on a day-to-day basis about illegal mining, 77% of all of them are for the state itself. Now, again, this data makes no sense if we don't know what it means. So they have basically given us in this data point a certain map. The map is that of all the states and UTs which Aravalli crosses, with regards to Gujarat, Rajasthan, Haryana and Delhi, Rajasthan has the main part of Aravallis in it. And if you look at the data further, out of 800 kilometers, 560 kilometers is within Rajasthan. Further, 16 out of the 22 wildlife sanctuaries are again located within Rajasthan. So Rajasthan is critical for the you can say conservation, preservation of the Aravallis generally. Now, based on this, what is the Aravalli controversy? Now, for a very long time, there was no direct definition. Please understand this point. There was no direct definition of what the Aravallis is or how should I define the Aravallis. So in 2010 onwards, there were expert agencies such as the Forest Survey of India. They defined the Aravallis along the lines of different parameters. A slope more than 3 degrees, 100-meter foothill buffer, and 500-meter inter-hill distance. Then, along with that, enclosed hill system concept was used. This is something which was there. Now, in 2024, the Supreme Court observed that because there is no direct definition or proper definition of what is called as a Aravalli hill complex, there is a lot of illegal mining happening because of this 3 degree, 100-meter buffer, 500-meter inter-valley distance concept. So, in mid-year 2024, a expert committee was established with Geological Survey of India, with Forest Survey of India, with State Forest Department to evolve a scientific definition. And this committee actually evolved a scientific definition wherein it said slope angle should be 4.57 degrees and more, and minimum height should be 30 meters. Please remember this point. Anything below 30 meters cannot be defined as Aravallis. Above 30 meters can be defined as Aravallis if it has more than 4.57 degrees of slope, and therefore anything above 30 meters and 4.57 degrees slope was protected. It was protected. However, the Environment Ministry made a U-turn in 2025 and it gave an alternative definition. The alternative definition was only landform rising 100 meters above it will qualify as a hill, and hills within 500 meters to be treated collectively as a Aravalli hill, meaning anything below 100 meters was going to be not seen as Aravalli. Anything above 100 meters was Aravalli, and if 500 meters apart, then they are separate hills, not a complex or hill range in that regard. This is extremely problematic. With 30 meters, there is 56% cases of all FIRs as illegal mining. The Supreme Court accepted this definition, and thereafter there was a proper hue and cry that the Aravalli should not be removed from protected status just by saying that anything above 100 meters is a lot. 30 meters is a safeguard limit. Thereafter, what happens is, under the pressure of these protests, the Supreme Court basically stayed its own verdict, and now the Supreme Court has said to the government that you should redefine your definition, and we'll meet in January of 2026. This is basically the Aravalli issue. So what this article allows us to do is, it allows us to, in a way, understand what is the Aravalli issue per se. But imagine when there is so much confusion and 30 meters is considered to be a basic threshold, then there is so much illegal mining. What if the Supreme Court judgment would not have been stayed? Then it would have been a pure disaster for Aravallis, where stone mining is so much that the Aravallis would vanish And the Aravallis play a very important role in the ecology of most of the states in the Doab sector. So therefore, I hope that the timeline and the issue is clear. Then I'll just show you the data point, what it is arguing about. That data is not important. This is more important. Are we on the same page? Harsh, if you are only relying on NCRTs, then you have to read old NCRT. New NCRT still can be ignored. Old NCRT has to be read. If you are only relying on NCRTs. If you're not relying on NCRTs, then old NCRT can be ignored, but you would have to then bring in Nitin Singhania, Spectrum and all, and then you can read new NCRT. So it's about what is the date, what is the book set which you're using. Okay, perfect. Now, based on this, there are two charts which are given. Number of cases which are coming of illegal mining, close to 9,000 in Rajasthan. And if you look at the districts out of which these FIRs are coming, most of the FIRs are coming from the Aravalli districts. So now what to do with this information? What we've done is two things. We have revised. I hope for anybody who had no idea, you have learned that this 30-meter concept of more than 4.5 degree, 4.57 degree, and now the concept of 100 meters and the plus minus 500 meters concept, how this is a disaster, how this is a disaster in making. So for the students who knew it, I hope that this is revision for you. For the students who have no idea, this is the core Aravalli issue. You're starting your preparation now and you think that what is this Aravalli issue? This is the Aravalli issue. The definition of Aravalli is the question. So remember that we will always start from zero, but you should be clear about this now, because this can be asked in multiple ways, be it in prelims, be it in mains, in some way or some form for sure. Understand one more thing very clearly, which is that the FIRs are not important here. The idea is that with no clarity and with 30 meters being the informal definition, there is so much illegal mining. Imagine what will happen if 100 meters comes into context. That will destroy the Aravallis. And that is not good for Delhi, Haryana, Western UP, Rajasthan itself. It literally stops the Thar Desert from coming into the Doab sector. It is a critical landform in India. So I hope that all of this is perfectly fine and you are now aware of what is the Aravalli issue. Now, the next article is linked to something which is very close to Indian politics, which is linguistic politics, language politics. Now, unlike the North-South Hindi imposition articles which we see generally, we have a very interesting article this time, which is on a bill which has been tabled and is waiting the governor's assent in Kerala, and it is called the Malayalam Language Bill 2025. It is still a bill, it has not become a law. It has been passed by the House, but it has not been given assent. Now here the controversy is that Karnataka state has raised a lot of red flags for this bill. Now let's try to understand what is the context here. See, India has two official languages, Hindi and English. It should have been only Hindi after 1965, but we already know that there was a proper crisis which was created because of the what we call as the anti-Hindi movement in the 65-66 period, and we have the Official Languages Act which was enacted and then later amended by Indira Gandhi to use this bilingual formula, which is that the idea was constitutionally it should have been first 50 years 2, thereafter 1, which is Hindi English, then only Hindi. But that's the process of making Hindi extremely Sanskritized, and the way it was being imposed led to a proper outcry from DMK and the southern states and northeastern states. It is not possible for us to transition towards Hindi. So that in turn led to this dual formula, which is two languages, English, Hindi. Now, in most states, what happens is, if we talk about the official language of that state, Mostly what they do is they adopt one official language of the union and one language of the state. For example, in Kerala for a very long time, you will find correspondence within the state and for administrative purposes in two languages, either Malayalam or English. This is what this act is trying to change. What it is trying to change is that originally there was Malayalam and English recognized as official languages. Under the new proposed bill, Malayalam will be formally adopted as the official language and English will be dropped, subject to constitutional provision and the governor giving assent. Thereafter, this bilingual use will in turn lead to mandatory use of Malayalam in government, education, judiciary, public communication, commerce, digital platforms. Basically, for all things what is called as official language. There was no single compulsory language in schools, but now Malayalam will be the first language and till 10th class it will be taught mandatorily within the schools itself. Thereafter, judiciary proceedings were largely in English, but there will be a phased manner in which wherein the courts will start to also give judgments in Malayalam. Further, the bills and ordinances were introduced in English. Now the bills and ordinances will be introduced in Malayalam, if passed. Then the Personnel and Administrative Reforms Department will now be called as Malayalam Language Department. Thereafter, no directorate was there for translation. Now there will be Malayalam Directorate, and all IT administration, digital platforms, there will be a lot of push under Article 346 and 347. The state argues that the president has discretionary power under 347 in a way, and 346 is about official language. So what Kerala state says is, we are within the ambit of 346 and 347 also, and we are within the ambit of official languages also, because we are only using it within the state. We are not using for state or center state. We are only using it for state, because the Kerala state has already gone through this previously also. A decade ago in 2015, they had introduced a bill under which they wanted to remove English and make Malayalam as the official language. But this bill got stuck with the president also, with the governor also, with the central government also, saying that it is unconstitutional because it is going against the three-language formula of NEP, and also it is something which is going against right to education and also the Official Languages Act plus 346 and 347. So over the past 10 years, Kerala has been refining this law in order to make sure that it becomes acceptable to the center also, but not necessarily to the center, but to the judiciary, to the president, and to the state itself. So this bill is going to be a revolution and maybe a template across the states in South India, or maybe states in general, wherein they start to drop English as a link language or Hindi as a link language. It is easier said than done, but something like this can create a trend. Now the question is, something like this should have been opposed by either the center or from a Hindi speaking state or from any North Indian state. However, the opposition is actually not coming from any of the non-peninsular states. Rather it is Karnataka which is raised a major opposition against it, saying it is unconstitutional. And the reason why they're quoting it as unconstitutional is because there is a Kannada speaking linguistic minority in Kerala, and that too they reside in the border district of Kasaragod. And the schools there till today teach Kannada and not Malayalam. So the argument is that with this bill coming through, Malayalam is going to become the compulsory first language. So they would have to learn Malayalam and Kannada. But in the district of Kasaragod, mostly it is Kannada which is taught, not Malayalam. Kerala has very simply said, the minister has said that we have a provision to protect the minorities, which is Tamil, Kannada, Tulu and Konkani minorities. There is a provision that they are still permitted to correspond with the state in their mother tongue. There is no ambiguity with regards to the state minorities and linguistic minorities. and it says that it is compliant with all the rules. But Karnataka is saying that we will fight it, we will take it to any and every avenue possible to prove that it's an unconstitutional bill. So now we have again a new issue. An issue which previously would have been, for example, between a north and a south state. Now it's a tussle within Karnataka and Kerala over the issue of this bill with regards to linguistic minorities within this sector. That is where this bill is very, very interesting and very, very important to understand, because it is a template. If passed by the governor or reserved for assent for the president and then passed, if passed, it will create a precedence. The precedence that Karnataka will do it for their own state, then Tamil Nadu will do it for their own state. When every state will remove English. But what will then happen is that for a migrant population or migrant student, be it a working professional, being a labor, it then becomes a problem. It then becomes a real big problem, because then English was something which allowed them, or Hindi which was allowing them to understand what was happening within state correspondence. That would be gone. So a question like this, that the recent Malayalam language bill 2025 has reinvigorated the Pandora's box of linguistic politics in India. Comment, you have to talk about this new precedence which can get created. This precedence is very, very important, because it allows us to then create a new type of politics in India, which is inward-looking state politics, which is even more defined by law itself. That is where we have to see where do we draw the line, and is there need for a judicial intervention here. So I hope that you understand why this bill is very, very critical and very, very important in the larger scheme of things. Clear, everyone? Yes. Still proposed bill. We will discuss it once it is passed again. Everyone, come on. Yes, sir. Beautiful. Now, from the prelims perspective, this article is very important. Very, very, very important, because it introduces two words to students. The first word is called marine biotechnology, and the other one is called space biotechnology. Very critical for prelims and mains both. Now, when we talk about marine biotechnology, the marine biotechnology concept is studying microorganisms, algae, and other marine life for bioactive compounds, enzymes, on how they are able to sustain pressure, salinity, low light, and nutrient poor environments. Meaning, these microorganisms can teach us on how do they survive in such extreme conditions. At the same point of time, space biotechnology is study of microbes, plants, and animals. What happens to them in microgravity and radiation? This is more critical for us. If we have to develop what is called as trans-earth based habitation, or what is called as interstellar travel, what will happen to our bodies with regards to radiation and microgravity? We need to test that. Can we grow plants? If yes, in what context can we grow plants? What are the different types of plants which can be grown? All research where biology is tested in space is space biotechnology. On the other hand, we have marine biotechnology, which deals with specifically how these organisms survive in extreme pressure and extreme conditions per se. Now, why does India need it? India needs it because it allows us to use this technology in our EEZ, on our long coastline. We can use it to develop what is called as solutions which are not there right now with regards to food security, maybe energy security, or even basic human exploration of the space. We have Gaganyaan program right now, and if we don't understand the impact of microgravity generally, how can we not in a way, research something like this without going to space biotechnology. So the idea is very simple. We have to do this in a way that we can use it for human health management, for biological manufacturing in extreme, and with climate change, extreme weather events are going to increase. A lot of issues are going to emerge. We have to figure that out also. Now, what is the potential and where are we? Are we doing something about this? Is the question. Are we doing something about this? And herein, we have, as of right now, 70,000 tons of seaweed we produce. Very modest vis-a-vis what is being produced in other sectors, EU and all. Seaweed is a very important, you can say, biotechnology based raw material which is used for a lot of different things. India mostly imports seaweed drawn products such as agar and other allignates which are used for biotechnology. At the same point of time, food, pharmaceutical sector, cosmetic and medical applications of all the seaweed based extraction is very, very important. And we already have policy interventions from the public, blue economy agenda, deep ocean mission, bio E3, which was in the news quite a lot. But again, it is on paper, not generally being pushed through. We have private sector players also, C6 Energy, Climacrew, and we also have a whole public research institution, which is the Central Marine Fisheries Research Institute. The problem is that ISRO itself is also developing its own whatever space biotechnology, but it's too fragmented. There's too much fragmentation. That fragmentation has to be brought together in order to produce what is called as a unified policy, and recognizing that these two, marine and space biotechnology, are the future. And if we are not properly investing into them, then we will not be able to generally do anything. So please understand this point, that these two words are now two buzzwords. UPSC can easily ask a question out of this area by using these two keywords. So be it prelims or mains, very critical for your understanding. Now, marine and space biotechnology remains relatively unexplored frontiers where early movers are likely to gain lasting strategic and technological advantages. Elucidate. Very important question. Very, very, very important question. Very realistic question for GS paper 3. For GS paper 3, a very realistic question. Now, we move to the last topic, simple, straightforward, nothing out of the box, which is an ILO report. This ILO report is generally important because it gives us a perspective of global employment and unemployment. And according to it, global unemployment remains historically at the lowest level. Now, I've systematized this information for you so that you can use it if you need to for GS paper 3. It says that the historically lowest level of unemployment is there across the world, which is 4.9%, which is close to 186 million people, still quite a big chunk. Thereafter, 284 million workers still live in extreme poverty, under $3, and therefore 2 billion workers are around the world informal employees also. This is the problem. This is what you can use in the examination. A trend-based question, if they say that everything is perfectly fine, no, it isn't. So what they argue is that there is a decline, marginal decline with regards to extreme working poverty in the past 10 years. This is slower than what happened previously, which was 15 percentage points. Now it is only 3.1 percentage points. Millions still lack access to basic quality jobs. Working poverty is very common. Informal sector employment is still the highest way of getting some form of employment. Least progress recorded with low income countries, and gender gap remains one of the most widespread across the world. And in the end, mostly what the problem is with informalization and informal sector, most of the working poor remain poor and are still below the $3 per day wage limit. So that is where something like this has to be understood and contextualized. So, what have we understood today? We have, in a way, learned a new set of words. I'll try to revise it with you. We've understood what is called as upstream, downstream, midstream. This is with regards to critical and rare earth metals. Upstream would be extraction, midstream would be processing, downstream would be the process of manufacturing something out of it. We have multiple partners: Australia, Japan, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Africa, within that Zambia and Namibia. We also have the US, EU, and we have Canada as important partners which can be used to diversify a supply chain. We can play with the different upstream, downstream, and midstream concepts, but these are the countries which are in focus, along with Latin America, which still remains our Achilles heel. Thereafter, we also tried to understand what is the Aravalli issue, and I gave you a quick recap of that with regards to how the definition was the problem, Supreme Court siding with the Environmental Ministry, major protest, the verdict has been upheld, and the verdict has been stayed rather, and the idea is that with illegal mining going out of hand in this sector, there is a very big chance that illegal mining in the Aravalli sector will increase more with the current definition. At the same point of time, in the third article, we tried to understand something which is the Malayalam bill, and when the Malayalam bill creates new precedents for linguistic politics in India, and this linguistic politics could be now based on one language as the official language of that state, and this can create issues with regards to linguistic minorities. Kerala says that Article 346, 347 and Official Languages Act has not been violated, but we don't really know about that till it is not upheld by the governor, and maybe Karnataka will take it to the Supreme Court for sure. So let us see, it becomes a sub judice issue very quickly. It is not functional. It is not functional. 100 meters is a 30 meters. Aravalli range is one of the oldest ranges in the world. So 100 meters is a very big height. With so much erosion at 30-40 meters also, they play a very important role in keeping the ecology of the Rajasthan sector within Rajasthan itself. And we also understood what is called as biotechnology, but new concept, marine and space, and how India needs to figure that out also. In the end, we understood that ILO is saying that we have historically lowest level of unemployment, but at the same point of time, global poor, informalization still remains an issue. All on the same page with me? No issues whatsoever? Yes, sir. Okay. So tomorrow we'll have the analysis at 5 p.m., not 3 p.m., but we'll have it at 5. But tomorrow we have a different issue. The other issue is that because today is Pongal, and happy Pongal to all of you, happy Makar Sankranti to all of you, the Hindu newspaper is not going to come tomorrow. But because the show needs to go on and your preparation has to go on irrespective of that, I'll be there with the articles which will be published on the Hindu website. Maybe the quantum of articles may be lower and the session may be only 30-35 minutes, 40 minutes. Still, I will make sure that we constructively contribute to your preparation tomorrow also. In a way, it would have been very easy for us to say that there's no CNA tomorrow, but we are making sure that we still are able to discuss critical issues which are happening today, and we will meet at 5 and discuss all of them. Right? So please do join me at 5 p.m. tomorrow, and thank you for being here. Take care.